Question.
Very good. Minister, I want to ask you what is the proposed good agricultural and environmental conditions which are proposed to come forward in the next CAP, which I understand is replacing what was considered to be the greening measures in the past, and you can make a statement on the matter. Thank you.
Minister, 2 minutes.
June 2018, the European Commission published the legislative proposals for the CAP post-2020. The proposals recognise the role agriculture has to play in helping Member States achieve their environmental and climate change targets. In this context, a significant feature of the proposals is the increased environmental ambition of the CAP post-2020. The new CAP reform proposals require Member States to set out their approach on environmental issues in the new CAP strategic plans. There are a number of new approaches to addressing environmental issues through the CAP, including 3 of the 9 key objectives set out for CAP post-2020 concern the environment. The ex-ante assessment for the plan must incorporate a strategic environmental assessment. The proposals include greater environmental conditionality on EU payments, with links to requirements such as the Water Framework Directive and proposals for mandatory nutrition management plans. 40% of the overall CAP budget must contribute to climate mainstreaming. Member States must make schemes available as part of the direct payments that provide additional support for eco-schemes, which go beyond the increased statutory management requirements and good agricultural and environmental conditions. Nationally, 30% of the Rural Development Programme expenditure, excluding payments for areas of natural constraint, must be focused on biodiversity, environment, climate-related measures. Non-compliance with statutory management requirements and standards for good agricultural and environmental conditions of land in the areas of climate and environmental, public health, animal health, plant health and animal welfare will require administrative penalty. Detailed proposals for new agricultural and environmental conditions and statutory management requirements were included as part of draft regulations published by the Commission last June, and I have arranged for the detailed list to be forwarded directly to the Deputy. There are 10 GAC covering a range of issues, including permanent grassland, protection of wetland and peatland, and nutrient management plans. There are 16 proposed statutory management requirements. These concern compliance with a number of directives, including the Water Framework Directive, the Nitrates Directive and the Directive on the Conservation of Wild Birds.
The remainder will be included in the official report, Deputy.
Thank you, Leslie Corley. Minister, the answer you give is quite vague in respect of many of these issues. Some of the things that certainly is concerning to a lot of farmers out there is that the conditions that will be set out in this will be conditions that they would normally have seen coming through the environmental programmes such as GLOS or REPS or other issues in the past. And if they're going to be taken up, if you like, in Pillar 1, then farmers are concerned what's going to be there in Pillar 2, which may be more extreme or more onerous on the farmer than what they've had up to now. I'd also like to get some more information, particularly on the issue of the protection of wetlands and the protection of peatlands and all of that, because that would have a huge impact, particularly in farmers on poorer quality land and on marginal land and on mountain-type land, where they at present find it very difficult for them to make a living. And if there's going to be more extreme, if you like, hardships placed on them for the protection of those kind of environmental protections, they need to see that they get an adequate return for that. In other words, that they're paid for the public good that they provide by the way that they already farm. And I don't think that's too much to ask. And if it's going to be just something that's going to be a condition of Pillar 1, well, obviously those conditions of Pillar 1 is going to be there for everybody. So, you know, they will be extra emphasis put on them, and that needs to be paid for the public good that they provide. And I need to see that there's a clear avenue for that to happen.
Well, our objective is to make the new Common Agricultural Policy as user-friendly as possible, but within the context of the clear direction of travel, which is to have a Common Agricultural Policy that is far greener in its hue and assists us in meeting a lot of the challenging obligations we have, particularly in the area of climate change. It is true that an awful lot of the landscape management that farmers are involved in, particularly in the more marginal lands that you refer to, should, I believe, be recognised for what it is. It is not intensive agricultural activity. The requirement, for example, for things like nutrient management plans are not as obvious as they are in areas of intensive agriculture. And to be able to devise a structure, an ultimate policy across Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 that recognise the public goods that are delivered by certain sections of the farming community who are not involved in intensive agriculture and are, you know, delivering huge gain in terms of biodiversity, water quality, climate etc., is I think something that we share that objective in. But we are acutely conscious of that context of the CAP.
Final question.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Well, being conscious of it and making sure that there's going to be money there to back it up is really what we want to see happen. And I think that's the clear ambition of what farmers want and what they deserve to have. The fear that a lot of farmers have, particularly on more marginal land and a more difficult land to farm, is that all of these environmental measures will be left to them, and that in the other parts of the country where we have what we would call more productive land, that there will be less onerous tasks left for those to provide to deal with the environmental impact of what needs to be done in regard to climate change, etc. Now, Minister, we need to have a situation here where there's balance brought into this. And certainly in a lot of the northwest and that, where we see huge amounts of forestry, huge amounts of emphasis being placed on biodiversity or on greening and all of these things, and farmers in that part of the world consider that they're doing that to make up for what's happening in other areas where you have very intensive farming happening. And that's not that there's anything wrong with intensive farming happening, but there needs to be a sense of balance. And farmers need to be provided with an assurance that they will be remunerated for the work that they do through that type of farming.
Minister, 1 minute.
Well, I'd like to be able to reassure the Deputy that the final outcome will meet the objectives that he aspires to, in the sense that the onus and obligation will be greatest on those who are involved in intensive agricultural activity, where the challenge to the landscape, the emissions profile, etc., is far more than those that are involved in a less intensive form of agriculture. I think that makes logical sense, and it would be right and proper that greater focus, inevitably in the context of sustainability and the CAP, will focus on those that are more intensive. I think the big challenge in all of this is in fact on the budget, which you alluded to, and that is something that is not easily resolved. As you're aware, the current proposals envisage a substantial reduction across both Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 to the order of something like 45 million each in each pillar each year, and that's something that we're also focused on.